The planet was dry, quiet, and far from everything. No green trees, no oceans, just orange dust, gray rocks, and a sun that never smiled. The colony was called Dust Settle. Only 312 people lived there. No soldiers, no army, no warships, just old farmers, quiet builders, school teachers, and a few machines that barely worked. Most other colonies thought Dust Settle was a failure, a place for the weak, a place to be forgotten, and maybe. That's what they wanted everyone to think. Far above, in the dark of space, a massive Zarneth warship floated into orbit. Inside, the Zarneth commander stood tall in black armor. He smiled. "This colony will fall in minutes," he said to his second-in-command. No walls, no fleet, no defense. His second officer, a young warrior named Koril, looked confused. "Should we send a full strike team?" The commander laughed. "For a few weak humans. Don't waste soldiers. This will be easy." On the ground in the center of the colony, an old man climbed a tower. His name was Evan, but people just called him Gramps. He wasn't a leader. He was the antenna repairman. He held a toolbox in one hand and chewed on a wooden toothpick. He tightened a loose bolt. A soft beeping came from the old radio beside him. Incoming vessel detected. Evan raised one eyebrow. He tapped the device, blew the dust off the screen. "Warship. Big one," he muttered. He didn't panic. He didn't call for help. Instead, he reached into the tower wall and flipped a small hidden switch. In the main colony building, Mira, a former schoolteacher turned governor, received the same signal. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She simply closed her book, stood up, and walked to the center of the room. A few others were there, an old cook, 2 teenagers fixing a drone, and a one-legged woman sharpening a pipe. Mira spoke calmly. "It's time." They all stood. No confusion, no fear, only quiet. The Zarneth warship sent a warning. "This colony is now under Zarneth control. Surrender and no one will be harmed." No reply came, just silence. The Zarneth commander smirked. "They're too scared to respond." Koril frowned. "Should we wait for intel?" "No need," the commander said. "Send the drop team, no armor, just a scan crew. This will be done in minutes." On the surface, the air shimmered as the drop shuttle descended. 6 Zarneth troops stepped out, weapons ready, scanners active. They moved slowly through the colony. Not a single gun fired. No defense towers, no shouting, only the soft wind and crunch of boots on dust. One soldier laughed. "These humans are hiding. Pathetic." Another pointed at an old farming robot, rusted and half buried in sand. "Is that their guard?" They laughed. But in the shadows, someone was watching and recording. In the back of a broken building, a small boy held a drone controller. He wore a dusty cap and had dirt on his face. Beside him sat a dog with metal legs. The boy pressed a button. The drone zipped high into the sky, then dove low, unseen by the soldiers. It scanned their weapons. It read their armor. It sent everything. To Evan's tower. Evan looked at the screen. He didn't smile. He just whispered, "Same gear as last time. Weak to shock waves." He pressed another switch. Deep under the colony's soil, old Earth tech hummed to life. The soldiers reached the power station. One tapped the gate. It opened. Too easily. Inside it was dark. Too quiet. The lead soldier stepped forward. Then, click. A soft sound, like a whisper. Then, boom. Not a huge explosion, just a pulse. Invisible, but powerful. Their guns died. Their visors turned black. Their suits locked. One screamed, "Emp! They trapped us!" The last thing they heard before blackout was a human voice over a speaker. "Welcome to Dust Settle. We don't play fair." Above, on the warship, the commander's smile faded. Koril looked at the screens. No signal from the drop team. The commander growled, "Send backup, full armor." Coral hesitated. Sir, what if this isn't a weak colony? The commander's eyes burned. Then we burn it. But it was already too late. Dust Settle wasn't weak. It was ready. The colony stayed quiet. No alarms, no running, no panic. But everyone knew. They all felt it in the dust, in the air, in the silence that got heavier by the hour. Something was coming. Inside the colony's oldest building, a half-buried command hut with a cracked roof, Governor Mira stood in front of a chalkboard. She wasn't teaching today. She was writing names not of students but of roles. Next to each name were strange labels: tunnel trap relay, EMP line checker, false retreat coordinator, garden distraction team. She handed the chalk to a teen named Kai, then looked at the room. 10 people sat on benches, bold, young, disabled, quiet. Not a single one was trained for war, but every one of them had seen it once. Before they came to Dust Settle, Mira spoke in her soft, teacher voice. They'll underestimate us. That gives us 6, maybe 7 minutes to act. An old man in the corner raised a hand like a student. What happens after 7? Mira looked him in the eye. After 7 minutes, they stop laughing. At the same time, outside near the water plant, Evan knelt in the dirt beside a long metal panel. He unscrewed it and reached inside. Dozens of tiny blinking lights glowed beneath. Old Earth tech, forgotten, outlawed on major planets. Evan wiped dust from a switch. Still works, he muttered. Beside him, a little girl with one mechanical eye crouched. Gramps, are we really gonna fight an empire? Evan looked up at her. Not fight. He pressed the switch. Embarrass. In the colony kitchen, steam hissed from old pots. Reba, the cook, stirred something thick and brown. A young boy peeked in. You're still cooking? Reba didn't look up. Always cook before a storm. The boy pointed at the window. They said we might die. Reba grabbed a ladle. If I'm going out full. She tasted the stew, then added hot pepper. Besides, she smiled. Might be the last good smell those aliens ever know. Above the colony, the Zarneth warship hovered like a black shadow. Inside the command deck, Commander Threx watched the ground. No explosions, no resistance, no screaming, just dust. This is too easy, he said, frowning. Coral, his second in command, checked the readings. Drop team's comms are still dead. Maybe interference? Or maybe... Threx growled. They're dead. He leaned forward. Send the second squad. Heavy armor. Drones. Burn everything. Down below, in the back of the old school building, 2 children and a dog were setting up something strange. It looked like a toy car, but it wasn't. The girl wired it to a control pad. The boy loaded it with a shiny blue battery. They tested it once. The car rolled forward, then stopped. The battery hummed, a small green light blinked. The girl grinned. That'll mess up a whole squad. The boy asked, Where should we put it? The dog barked. The girl nodded. The flower bed. Behind the colony, past the solar fields, the windmill blades began to spin faster. No one was there, except for one person, a woman with metal legs and one eye. She adjusted the spinning gears and whispered, If they come this way, they're going for a ride. She tapped the final lever. The blades locked into place, and beneath the windmill, the dirt moved. Back inside the old command hut, Mira closed the chalkboard. She looked at the others. This colony was built by survivors, she said. Not soldiers, not killers, survivors. She looked at every face. None of us came here to fight, but none of us are afraid anymore. She paused. Make them fear silence. In the shadows under the colony floor, 100 buried wires glowed softly. They weren't powered by war. They were powered by memory, by people who had lost homes before, who knew what it meant to start over, and who refused to let anyone take that away again. Up in the sky, Commander Threx watched his screens. No movement, no defense, No resistance. He smiled. They really are weak. He raised a clawed hand. Begin attack. But the second his drop troops touched the ground, a small beep echoed from the soil, followed by a whisper over their comms. Timer started. The Zarnath soldiers touched down on Dust Settle with heavy boots and heavier pride. There were 12 of them this time. Not scouts, not sensors. Shock troops. Covered in dark armor with glowing red visors, their guns were long, their words few. The second their boots hit the dirt, the timer began. They didn't hear it, but the colony did. A quiet beep echoed in the hidden parts of the settlement, beneath floorboards, inside old machines, under garden soil. The lead soldier, Unit Commander Dravik, raised his weapon and scanned. The buildings ahead. No turrets, no mechs, no guards, only wind, and one unmoving scarecrow made of metal pots and farming rope. He laughed. This is defense, his second nodded. We'll be done in 5 minutes. That was mistake number 1. The squad split into teams. 3 moved toward the water station. 4 entered the main dome. 5 headed for the solar field behind the colony. Standard sweep. They'd done it hundreds of times before. It always worked. Until, now water station. The 3 soldiers passed through the fence gate. The sensor on their visors blinked red for a second, then green again. Scanner's glitching, one said. Old wiring, the other guessed. They entered the main pump room, dark, quiet, too clean. One of them saw an old toolbox on the floor. It was open. A small toy robot lay inside. It blinked. Once, twice. Then, pop. A flash of blue light filled the room. Not fire, not shrapnel, just silence. Their suits powered down instantly. The lights died. Their weapons dropped dead. MP burst, hidden in a toy. They were trapped. Main dome. The 4 soldiers entered through a broken wall, laughing. Looks like a school, one said. What's that on the wall? Drawings, said another. And that, wait, is that a map? They approached the chalkboard. It showed the layout of the colony, hand-drawn. Red X's marked doors, corners, stairwells. One soldier tapped the center of the map. Maybe this is... The floor opened beneath them. The whole section dropped 6 feet in an instant. They landed in a sand-filled trench. Above them, a voice echoed from a speaker. Should have done your homework. The lights clicked on. Dozens of small tubes were aimed down at them. They started to panic. One soldier climbed but slipped. Then the sprinklers came on, spraying thick, sticky foam, the kind used to fight electrical fires. Their weapons choked, their visors blurred, and the old school laughed. Solar Field 5 troops walked carefully between large, dusty panels. One kicked a broken bucket, another adjusted his helmet. Still no resistance, one of them squinted. There's something moving, left side. A child, maybe 10 years old, wearing goggles and dragging a broken drone behind her. She looked scared. Target? One soldier asked. Could be bait, said another. The squad. Leader raised his hand. Move in. Capture alive. They advanced slowly. Then the child stopped, turned around, and grinned. Boom, she whispered, then vanished into a hole. Behind the soldiers, the drone exploded. Not a big blast, but enough to knock them into the sand. Wires popped out of the ground. Panels sparked, their suits turned off. And far above them, a tin can tied to a pole dropped a flag that read, Nice try. Back on the command ship, Commander Threck stared at his screens. 12 soldiers. 0 signals. Corel looked at him nervously. Sir, no vital readings. They're alive, but blind. Explain. Corel gulped. EMP traps, foam traps, ground shifts, local tech disruptions. This colony has no tech. Corel turned to him. Then maybe they are the tech. Down on Dust Settle, Governor Mira stood at the top of the central tower. She watched through binoculars as the squad scrambled uselessly. Minute 3, she said calmly. Next to her, Reba the cook stirred a pot on a portable burner. Soup's almost ready, Reba said. Think they'll want some? Mira smiled. Let them sweat first. At the edge of the colony, Evan pressed a final button on an old mining control board. It powered up slowly, groaning, clanking. Then, from beneath the sand, 6 ancient digger bots rose up. Their screens flashed. Automated pattern deter and drive. They rolled forward with screeching metal arms and no mercy. One Zarnath soldier screamed as a bot chased him into a ditch. At exactly minute 6, a loudspeaker crackled to life across the battlefield. A young voice, clear, confident. Dear invaders, we are not soldiers. We are not killers. But we do remember. Every trap, every drone, every wire is built from what you left behind. You taught us how to break, so we taught ourselves how to survive. Welcome to Dust Settle. You have 1 minute left. Kaki. The far edge of Dust Settle, near the dry crops and cracked irrigation pipes, a soldier limped through the dust. His helmet was cracked. His gun was jammed. His pride broken. He was alone now, separated from his squad after the solar field trap. His name was Ralos, one of Zarnath's Iron Elite. He had trained on fire worlds, burned colonies, fought humans before. But never like this. Nothing in his training spoke of silence used as a weapon. Nothing had prepared him for. Dust Settle Raylo stumbled toward a shack made of scrap metal and broken glass. Smoke rose from a stove inside. He scanned it. No heat signatures, no threat markers, just one slow pulse, one living form, easy target. He pushed open the crooked door with the butt of his rifle. Inside, the light was dim. Dust floated in sunbeams that slipped through old curtains. There was a table with tools, a bucket of dry corn, a wall lined with old engine parts, and a man. He stood by the stove, back turned, holding a mug of tea. He wore a dusty poncho, straw hat, and one glove. His other arm was steel, rusty, dented, but strong. He didn't look up. Didn't. Flinch just spoke. Can I help you, son? Rylos aimed his gun. Don't move. The man still didn't turn. Name's Harv. I grow peppers, fix tools, drink hot stuff. Rylos stepped inside slowly. You're harboring enemies of the Zarnath Empire. Harv tilted his head. Empire, huh? He finally turned around. His face was calm, eyes sharp as blades. The steel arm gleamed under the sunlight. Funny thing, Harv said. Empires don't last long on this dust. Ralos stepped closer. You think you're safe because you're old? Harv stepped forward too. No, he said. I'm safe because I've already died once. There was a flash of movement. Ralos fired. Too late. Harv spun low, grabbed the rifle barrel with his metal hand, twisted hard. Snap! The rifle bent in half. Ralos swung his fist. Harv blocked with his arm. Clang! Then elbowed Ralos in the ribs. Crack! The soldier hit the wall. Hard. He coughed. Blood. Harv stepped over. Calm. I fought in the First Rift War. 27 battles. I buried my squad under a moon of glass. He grabbed Ralos by the collar. You're not my worst day. He flung him through the wooden wall. The soldier rolled across the dirt, groaning. Harv stepped outside and cracked his neck. Around the shack, 3 more Zarnath soldiers ran toward him. Drawn by the noise, Harv didn't hide. He ran toward them. The first fired. Harv raised his steel arm. The shot bounced off. He shoulder rammed the attacker into a pole. The second swung a blade. Harv caught. It twisted, flipped the soldier headfirst into a crop box. The third backed away, shaking. Harv stood still, face expressionless. He said, Leave. The soldier ran. A small drone buzzed above, recording everything. From the tower, Mira watched the screen and smiled. She tapped a button. On every display across Dust Settle, the footage appeared. Harv ripping the rifle, Harv walking through fire, Harv taking down elite warriors with farming tools. The message was clear. The old man grows peppers, but he was a weapon. Later that evening, Harv sat on a bench near the broken fence, sipping tea again. His steel fingers tapped the cup gently. Drek, the metal-legged dog, sat by his side. Harv looked out at the red sky and whispered, "I told you I was done fighting." The wind didn't answer, but somewhere in the dust the earth seemed to listen, because sometimes peace doesn't come when war ends. Sometimes peace only comes after you remind the galaxy what made you dangerous in the first place. Back in the Zarneth ship, Commander Threx smashed his console. "Who is that man?" Coral, pale, read from an old Earth file. Harv D. Malik. Age, 62. Veteran. Declared dead after orbital firefall. Awarded 6 Earth steel medals. Threx's voice was low. "Why wasn't I told?" "Because," Coral said. "He's a farmer." Threx whispered. "Then why does he fight like a god?" Back on Dust Settle, Harv stood again. His arm clicked once, twice. Then he looked to the stars and said, 1 minute left. The Zarneth warship hovered like a storm cloud over Dust Settle. Inside, Commander Threx paced in silence. His soldiers were down. Their tech was broken. Every plan had failed. And now, a colony with no army was winning. He turned to his advisor. "How are they doing this?" Coral swallowed. "I don't know, sir. They have no defense grid, no air force, no fleet. Their people are farmers, miners, children." Threx slammed his fist into the wall. "Then why are we the ones bleeding?" Back on the ground, the colony was alive. But not in the way enemies expected. No sirens, no panic, no shouting, just action. Small focused, precise. In the greenhouse, Mira kneeled beside a young girl with 2 prosthetic arms. Together, they repurposed small watering bots. They filled each one with liquid foam mix and coated them to follow motion. The girl whispered, "Will this stop a real soldier?" Mira smiled softly. "No, but it'll make him trip, drop his weapon, and maybe feel really stupid." The girl grinned. "Even better." Near the old garage, a group of boys used magnets and wire coils to build what looked like a slingshot. But vertical. It launched empty cans filled with noisemakers. When they fired one, it clanged down near a patrol route. Distraction. "Another," Kid whispered. "Did we just make war music?" The boy beside him nodded. Dust Settle style. Inside the abandoned school, Reba the cook flipped a massive kitchen table and opened a hatch hidden beneath. Down below, dozens of old service drones lined the wall. Most had frying tools, some had rolling pins. All had one new upgrade: heat coils wired to overload. Reba patted one on the dome. "All right, sweethearts, one more meal to serve." She pressed a button. The drones rolled out, beeping, spinning, clanking. One played old Earth jazz from its speaker. Near the outer ridge, a teenager named Kai sat on top of a solar panel, guiding a drone swarm from his tablet. Each drone carried a single message blinking on their sides. "You attacked farmers, now meet the harvest." The drones moved like a school of fish, swooping low, fast, confusing. Soldiers panicked. One fired at a drone. It exploded in sparks. Not deadly. Just enough to blind him for 30 seconds. 30 seconds was all Dust Settle needed. The colony had no weapons, but it had minds, hands, time. They didn't train for war. They built for survival, and survival had made them smart, fast, unpredictable. In the old med bay, a woman named Dr. Elna worked fast. She wasn't a warrior. She had once delivered babies and patched burns. Now she was hacking medical nanobots. She turned to her assistant, a young boy with shaking hands. "Nervous?" He nodded. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Good. That means you'll double-check your code." The bots, once designed to repair cells, now moved toward enemy armor. When they touched metal, they short-circuited it. Silently, without damage to flesh, only to control. Above it all, Mira stood on the tower with a telescope. She watched the last Zarneth ground unit trying to regroup near the crashed shuttle. They were tired, confused, scared. Not because they were hurt, but because they didn't understand. This wasn't a military base. This wasn't a stronghold. It was a place full of grief-hardened hope. Once, Dust Settle had been the home of people who ran from war. Now it was where war learned to run. In the center of the colony, speakers clicked on. Mira's voice came through. To the soldiers still standing, you are out of sync. Your comms are blocked. Your weapons are weak. Your tech is blind. You were trained to fight machines, not children, not cooks, not broken people who built themselves back. You thought power was noise. You forgot how loud silence can be. You have 40 seconds. Choose how you want to be remembered. Inside the warship, Commander Threx watched as one of his last units dropped their weapon and raised both hands. Another removed his helmet and sat down in the dust. Corel whispered, "They're surrendering." Threx clenched his fists. How long have they been planning this? Corel looked pale. Since before we knew their name. At exactly -7, the warship's landing crew received a ping, one file, just one. From the dust settle communication line, it contained one photo. Metal frying pan, covered in foam, with a note carved into the handle. Next time, bring salt. Down in the colony, the people gathered, not to cheer, not to celebrate, but to clean up, fix what was broken, and write down every detail, for the record. Because Dust Settle wasn't just a colony anymore. It was a reminder that the strongest weapon is not always a gun. Sometimes it's a village that remembers how to fight as a family. At minute 6:01, the galaxy still thought Dust Settle was just a farm colony. By 6:58, that belief was dead. On the surface, the battlefield looked strange. No smoke, no bodies, no fires. But scattered across the ground like confused toys were alien rifles, cracked helmets, shattered visors, and broken comlinks. And sitting beside them, cans, pots, shovels, old gardening drones, children's shoes, all left behind as symbols. In the center of the colony, a large red X was painted on the dirt, not with blood, with tomato sauce. Next to it was a note carved into stone. You brought guns. We brought lunch. Inside the Zarnath warship, the air was heavy. Commander Threx stood in front of a blank screen. The last of his troops had gone silent, one after another. No last stand, no brave call for help. Just click, and then silence. He stared at the screen, unmoving. Why won't they fight us, he growled. Corel replied, barely above a whisper. Because they already won. The Zarnath Empire had sent one of their top extraction units to Dust Settle. They expected to finish in under 5 minutes. Instead, they were dismantled in 7. Not by missiles, not by bombs, by strategy. Laughter, foam, and an old man with one arm. Minute. 6:14, the warship's power grid spiked, shorted. 3 drones in orbit lost control and floated away. Corel ran diagnostics. They've hacked our core systems. Threx slammed his fist into the console. How? How are they doing this? Corel looked up. They planted dust in our code. Threx blinked. What? Real dust. Their sand has fine crystal in it. It's spreading static through our armor ports, and they laced it with micro antennas. Impossible. Corel turned the screen. A live camera showed a child shaking a rug in front of a Zarnath scout drone. Each shake released particles. Each particle carried command interference. Dust Settle's wind was speaking. Minute 6:33, Threx gave the retreat order. Pull everyone out. But there was no one left to pull. The last 5 soldiers had dropped their gear and sat on the ground, staring into space, muttering. They fed us. After we shot at them, one whispered. They let us charge, then fed us soup. Another cried softly. Why didn't they kill us? No one had answers. Because Dust Settle didn't fight like a war zone. It fought like a mirror. It showed the attackers who they were, and that broke them faster than bullets. Minute 6:49, a new signal came through. Not a threat, a song. Old Earth music, acoustic. Guitar, light humming, gentle rhythm. It came from every speaker in the colony. Then from the Zarnath ship. Then from every captured drone. Then from their helmets. A lullaby. Not translated, just felt. Threx stared at the sound waves on the screen. They're mocking us. No, Corel said, they're mourning us. Minute 6:55, a single drone rose into the sky. It carried no weapon, just a small data chip. It flew slowly, straight toward the Zarneth warship's bridge. The guards raised blasters. Threk stopped them. Let it come. The drone landed gently on the deck and opened. Inside was a message, a simple sentence. 7 minutes was generous. Threx dropped the message, turned away. His voice trembled. Prepare the jump drive. We're leaving. Coral hesitated. Shall I alert High Command? Threx closed his eyes. No. Sir? Threx looked out the window. They sent us to crush farmers. What will they say when they learn the farmers made us beg for mercy? Coral said nothing, and in that moment he realized they hadn't just lost a mission, they had lost their image. Minute 7. The Zarneth warship jumped out of the system, without fanfare, without victory, without honor. And behind them, the colony of Dust Settle stood quiet once more, but not silent. The people were cleaning the fields, fixing drone wings, feeding the soldiers they had captured, now tied with vines, not chains. Reba the cook handed soup to one of them. The soldier flinched. She smiled. Easy. It's not poison, just carrots and garlic. He looked up confused. Why are you feeding us? Reba shrugged. Because tomorrow you're helping rebuild the windmill. Up in the tower, Mira watched the sunset. Evan sat beside her sipping tea. She asked, 7 minutes? He nodded. Almost to the second. She chuckled. Think they'll come back? Evan looked at the horizon. No. Then he added, but someone else will. Mira frowned. Another empire? Maybe. He stood and walked to the hatch. But now, they'll come with questions instead of weapons, and that was how the story of Dust Settle spread. Not through war reports, but through rumors. Stories whispered in soldier camps, across trade stations, and into the minds of rulers. There's a colony that took down a full strike team. They used toys. Their farmers are legends. Their cook is scarier than their warriors. Don't step on their fields unless you like surprises. They don't start fights, but they finish them quick. In the Galactic Archive, a new entry appeared. Earth Colony 47, Dust Settle threat level, uncertain status, independent known. Fact, Zarneth Empire forces attacked at full strength. Known result, full retreat after 7 minutes. Field note, if you think they're weak, don't wait for minute 8. 1 month later, the planet was still the same. Dust in the air, windmill blades creaking, broken tools lying under the same tired sun. But the name was different now. No one called it Dust Settle anymore. Now, across 1,000 systems, they whispered it with respect, with fear, with wonder. They called it Iron Dust. The old sign outside the colony had been repainted, not with fancy colors, just bold white words on brown rusted steel. We don't start fights. We end them fast. Iron Dust, Earth Colony 47, the war was over. But the story was just beginning. Ships began to arrive. Not warships. Curious ones, traders, reporters, historians. Even old veterans who wanted to see if the tales were true. Was it real? Did a colony of kids and cooks really humiliate the Zarneth Empire in 7 minutes? Did an old farmer with a metal arm really break a soldier's weapon with one hand? Did they really trap elite troops using tomato sauce and toys? The answer was always yes, and even more. Visitors and news crew from the Orion Belt landed first. They interviewed Mira by the broken schoolhouse. Were you afraid? They asked. She smiled. Every minute. Then why didn't you surrender? She looked at the children playing in the distance, flying drones, because they were watching. A general from a neutral planet stood before Evan's tower. You had no cannons, no fighters. How did you win? Evan handed him a tool. Fix a broken solar pump with that. Then ask me again. The general was silent. A philosopher stood beside Reba's kitchen. You use soup to confuse your enemies? She stirred the pot. No. I used kindness. She paused, then added chili powder, but also a bit of pepper. A young alien child walked up to Harv and stared at his steel arm. You really punched a Zarneth mech? Harv didn't answer. He just raised the arm, opened and closed the fingers once, and winked. The kid grinned and ran off. New settlers of family arrived from a distant mining world. Their home had been lost to pirates. They asked, "Can we stay?" Mira answered, "Can you grow things?" The mother said yes. The father said, "And fight if we must." Mira nodded. "Welcome to Iron Dust." A half-blind old man offered to repair the windmill. A one-legged mechanic from Mars built a new drone bay from scrap. A group of orphaned kids started their own defense club, calling themselves the 7-Minute Squad. No one argued, because everyone remembered. Iron Dust didn't grow by orders. It grew by stories. Stories of pain, of pride, of quiet people who stood up when they didn't have to. The Zarneth. Response. The Empire never spoke of it, not officially. They erased logs, silenced survivors. They banned the name Iron Dust from war briefings, but the silence said everything. They were ashamed, and they were afraid. Because if one small colony could do this, who else was ready? Other empires noticed too. The Voss Coalition upgraded colony defense training based on Iron Dust tactics. The Hextari Syndicate rewrote their invasion protocol. If a human settlement appears quiet, assume the worst. And Earth? Earth sent no message, no metal, no ship, only a crate. Inside it, 2 crates of seeds, 1 case of parts, and a handwritten note. Heard you made history. Keep growing. Signed, former Commander Halem, First Rift War, Veteran Legacy, 10 years. Later, Iron Dust became the training site for peaceful colony defense. New recruits came, expecting guns. They got shovels, wires, drones, and long talks with Mira. One asked, "What's the first step to stopping an attack?" She pointed to a chalkboard. "Know your people." Kai, the boy who once built noise bombs, now led drone. Strategy for 3 colonies. Reba's recipe book became standard survival reading for Earth outposts. Chapter 9. How to feed 30 people with 1 Zarneth pack in a dream. Evan's name was written on a small metal plaque outside the tower. No speech, just, he flipped the switch, then made tea. Harv never left. He sat near the fence every day, sometimes alone, sometimes with a child sitting beside him listening to his quiet stories. Stories that always ended the same way. We didn't want war. But we didn't fear it either. Final entry, archive recording galactic year, 78.421.210. Here lies the record of Iron Dust, a colony that was once called weak, a people who were once forgotten, a battle that lasted 7 minutes, and a silence that lasted forever. In war, there are victories. In peace, there are legends. But sometimes, one place becomes both.